All right, the Reds, it's the second look, and we're taking a second look at Liverpool's 3-0 win over Southampton at Anfield on Saturday. With me, Gareth Roberts, to do it. I've got Dan Morgan and I've got Paul Cope. Wanted to start off with the league table. I see people say all the time, oh, it's only 6 games and you shouldn't be getting carried away. It's mainly rival fans that are saying this, funnily enough. Whereas us Liverpool fans, we're like, well, we've got 18, 6 out of 6 in the league, we're top, we haven't lost any games, we've only conceded 2 goals in the league. So I thought to just start, it'd be interesting to look at this time last year. This time last year, after 6 games, City were top with 16 points, we've got 18. Back then, Liverpool were 5th with 11 points, we're obviously now 1st with 18. And at this same point in the season as well, Liverpool had played 6, won 3, drawn 2, lost 1. We'd also scored 12 goals and conceded 11. So by loads and loads of indicators, basically, the Reds are boss.
Well, I think you've got to realise first and foremost that this isn't going anywhere. No one's waiting for this to fall off a cliff. And the manager's made a very clear point of this is how it starts and this is how it sets, and we do this for a season. Yeah. No one's expecting us to win every game apart from was here in the Anfield wrap, so long may that continue. Yeah. But I mean, there's a notion now that you can you give yourself kind of a free hit, whether that's next Saturday against Chelsea, or maybe it's City at home, although we're at home we'll want to win. Maybe it's Arsenal away. They're all tricky games still. And although we've embraced this nightmare run that we were supposed to be having, it's the concept that a draw away to Chelsea this week, isn't a bad result at all. It keeps us right in the mix. It keeps them another 2 points away from us. And it's a bar that we need to set and maintain, and we will. And it breeds across the league. And I think you've seen it Saturday, that Southampton, for me, are happy, and they take heart from the fact that they draw the second half 0-0 against us. And that's
Mark Hughes literally says it, yeah.
Sells that to them going into their next game. You got a 0-0 in the second half, let's take that into the next game. We won 3-0.
I mean, people say, Paul, obviously, as I say, that it's early and it doesn't really matter and all that, but if I read out the order of this time last season, well, City were top and they finished top. United were 2nd at this point, Chelsea were 3rd, Spurs were 4th and Liverpool were 5th. So it's not a million miles away from the way it actually finished. So of course it matters, and I think Dan's right in that it feels like now that we're starting to get into other managers and other sets of players' heads about the way we're playing, about the way, they're hardly getting any chances. Southampton on Saturday have 1 shot on target, which comes in the 91st minute. Charlie Austin, fairly comfortable save for Alisson. So all of this doesn't go unnoticed because of the spotlight's huge on the Premier League, obviously. So I always think about, if you were playing in non-league, you must have no clue about some of the, you can look the results up in the paper or whatever, but you can't sit there and watch the highlights. You can't watch Match of the Day. You can't watch the game back on some app. Whereas everything that happens in the Premier League is in everyone's heads because it's everywhere. And so this is all this is important. Leading from the front is important. Being in their heads about, hardly conceding any goals, hardly conceding any big chances. It's all positive stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We talked last week about, I've got this idea in my head now about all the WhatsApp groups in the Premier League. I'd love, someone should uncover that at some point and we should get to see it.
Yeah, it'd be great that.
Because I think even watching it on Saturday, because I didn't see it live, because I was down in London for the Joshua fight, and so I've watched it back, I think it's always dead interesting when you get to do this. You get to watch it in full after you've heard all of the stuff on Twitter and all the rest.
Yeah.
And I was dead impressed, because I think loads of Liverpool fans already have switched into, well, that was easy. It's easy. Southampton did all right. They played well. And we talk about, and everyone obsesses with our attack, and we scored 3 goals in the first half, and Shaqiri's talk about loads, and we'll mention him. But I'd be really interested to see all the coaches and managers and players in the rest of the league talking about playing against us from their attack's viewpoint. Because so many times they've got the ball, they're moving the ball well around the pitch, they're not getting anywhere. Our defence is so solid. The shape, watching us back, and it was interesting as well getting to watch it in the comfort that we'd won 3-0, because I've got no emotional attachment to it then really, other than this will be interesting to watch. So you can focus more on things like, it's like when you watch it back a second time after watching it live, you can focus on things like the shape, how they're all talking to each other, the communication, how they're bollocking each other when the slightest thing goes wrong in defence. We've gone from having a team of people who never open their mouths, and we'd comment at the match, they're so quiet, to having a team full of fellas just barking at each other the whole time. The shape is incredible. You could see at times Southampton just sort of moving the ball around and then going, it's inevitable that they're going to get it back off us. And once they get it back off us, then they've got these lads. And all of this combined spreads through the league. And Dan's absolutely right. When you've got opposition managers saying, I made up with drawing the second half 0-0 there, and selling that, that's like a tiny little glimpse into the psychology of the other teams in the league. And I think we have now put ourselves in that category of where City were last season, where everyone's like, sort of cross that off your list of places to get points. And on the whole, I really will never understand people putting this type of thing down at all. If you win this many games on the run at any stage in the season, it's brilliant. To do it right at the start and to already have those gaps between us and City and us and Chelsea and us and United. When you look at that table and think, we're already something like 6 ahead of United, 8, something like that. That's incredible. We've only played 6. So, long may it continue. You've just got to, this is, we said before we started recording, that's how you win leagues.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just to run through a few more stats, obviously Liverpool 61% possession in the game, 12 shots to Southampton's 7, 4 on target to Southampton's 1, as I mentioned, 5 corners for Liverpool, 4 for Southampton, and a few other things to talk about. I mean, the formation seems to be one that has caught everyone's attention. Neil gets into that a little bit more in depth later on, but it's the first time that we saw this season a 4-2-3-1 to accommodate Shaqiri for his debut there. Lots of focus, obviously, on the fact that he comes off at half-time and it's not injury, it's tactical. Klopp has said as much. When you're watching it first half, did you think it worked? Did you feel there was any concerns around it for you?
I was noticing that there was a few times where senior players were on his back about his starting position. Now I thought he played well. Thought he had it's his first half of football from the start for us. Thought on that basis alone, the energy, the willingness he showed, and the times that he got on the ball and he looked like he could do something. I thought he was impressive in that mode, but there was just a little bit in terms of his positional sense that it kind of reminded me of Oxlade-Chamberlain, Robertson early last season, where you just want them to be in a certain place at a certain time, and it's fine detail this, and all of them are on it because they've played in this team for years and they know, but they're just urging him to get there. And it's a funny thing, I've been thinking about it the last couple of days, and when a manager uses the word tactical to explain something, it's still very vague. It could mean anything, you know what I mean? It just means they're not injured most of the time. So I was thinking about it. I mean, me and Neil were chatting about it in the pub after the game on Saturday, and he give credit to him for this. He reminded me of a game a few years back, I think against Fulham under Rodgers, where he basically tries something and he brings wisdom off after about half an hour. And he comes out after the game basically and says, well, we were looking at something, weren't really working, and I just jibbed it. Now, I think we were 2 up or something at that point, so maybe it was something like that. I think maybe as well, I think it may be because of just how well everyone seems to have took it, it might have been pre-planned. We might have, depending on whether, if Milner doesn't play tomorrow, you've got to factor in that Milner would have gone nearly a week and a half without any footy. So maybe he's already said to Shaqiri, I'll give you a half. I want you playing 90 on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I want Milner to get 45 minutes to take him into Chelsea next Saturday. So it could have been that. I mean, it's unlike him. It'd be very pragmatic if so, but...
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the idea that maybe it is pragmatism. We're just going to go to Neil though, because he's going to expand a little bit on maybe why Shaqiri got the hook at half time, also what Southampton were doing and what Liverpool were doing tactically in this game.
The obvious thing to talk about is the substitution, the big change that Klopp makes at half-time, the fact that he calls it tactical. Let's be really clear about this. Managers aren't obliged to tell the truth. They could well say it was an injury concern, could say there was a little bit of a pull, could do absolutely anything, but he makes this substitution decision to take Shaqiri off. If we look at the way Liverpool had set up, it's something that looks a little bit like a 4-2-3-1. You can say it's more of a 4-2-4, but we end up with Mane all the way over here, Firmino doing bits around here. It's Salah through the middle, which is interesting for a variety of reasons, some of which could be about the fact that Salah might like to play there a little bit more often. And then Shaqiri, and Salah tended to pull this way and Shaqiri tended to be this way. And that's how Liverpool went right the way across the business throughout the course of that first half. And I actually thought Shaqiri was quite bright. Southampton played the 4-5-1 we expected. Here is Romeu, and he was the missing counter, and he went in there. They had long doing channels. They actually played target over on the left to try to, I think, buttress this up. But as it wore on, a couple of things happened that were of interest. The first is that Shaqiri, I thought, from watching the game in the stands, was quite often taking up good, little clever positions across the lines, but he wasn't getting that much of the ball from Henderson, from Wijnaldum, from Trent Alexander-Arnold, even from Robertson when he went the other side, and from Mane especially, and Salah. Liverpool couldn't really properly get him in the game. When he was in the game, I thought he looked alive and looked really, really strong. It looked like he could be a very, very useful player for Liverpool. But it was almost that Liverpool had forgotten this sort of player, whether it's Coutinho, whether it's Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. They'd forgotten what you do with one of these to a certain extent. It meant that things weren't quite right elsewhere. So going right the way back here, a couple of times Southampton did get in down this flank, and Mane wasn't really tracking beyond a certain point, and I think maybe the expectation might have been it should be Shaqiri who's in there, and that wasn't really happening, and Liverpool's two in midfield were being stretched too much either way. The point about this is not, in my eyes, when it's tactical, it isn't as though what Shaqiri was doing wasn't right, that his tactical ability wasn't right. That could possibly be part of it. But I think the manager makes a change, a very emphatic change, to change one thing in order to change six things, rather than try to change six things to change six things, or six things to even change one thing and keep Shaqiri on and get more out of him. It's a big call from the Liverpool manager, and the story it sends out, I think, to everybody involved at Liverpool this season is how serious it is, how serious Liverpool currently are. And the change itself, which saw Milner come on, not Fabinho, not Keita, also suggests that Liverpool weren't taking any chances. The midfield three functioned better. Southampton couldn't get in as Wijnaldum came this side and covered across. Milner covering across that side. Henderson through the middle. And Southampton were left having to take 3-0. They would have shook hands, and Liverpool got themselves a couple more chances towards the end of the game.
Okay, thanks to Neil there. Seems like he quite likes Shaqiri now. I seem to remember him having a bit of a different opinion before we bought him.
Never want to see him in a Liverpool shirt was the phrase, I think.
It was, wasn't it? I think it was.
Get that on a t-shirt, Gareth. Let's get it out there.
I know, let's find out what he actually said and put it on a t-shirt. If you want to buy that, let me know and I'll make it happen. But in terms of, we were talking just before the Neil section there about the idea that maybe Klopp is just being a little bit more pragmatic than he's known for. This season really, and maybe it's the Shaqiri substitution part of that, because if you look at the second half, just nothing happens really. And like, you know, I got it up on the Stats Zone app. A lot of the information that we talk about in these shows is from that, by the way. That is now a sort of independent app, and I think they're very reliant on people actually buying the app and using it to keep going. It's not supported by 442 like it once was. So if you like this kind of stuff and this type of information, and it is really good, and it, you know, it does sort of feed the pub conversation as well. If you think he's talking bollocks, so just look up on this app. So the Stats Zone app is where we're getting a lot of this information from, so it's worth a look. But on there, you can sort of you can select a period in the match, and so I selected from half time until the final whistle, and there are 3 attempts on goal from Liverpool and 1 from Southampton, and they all come in the latter sort of 5-10 minutes of the game, at the end 5-10 minutes of the game. There's 2 from Milner, there's 1 from Robertson, and there's 1 from Charlie Austin, and that's it. And it's mad that sort of that period of football is played with essentially nothing happening. But maybe that is the pragmatism I'm talking about. So you look at where Milner ends up on the pitch, it's pretty much everywhere. He's winning tackles, his dots are all over the pitch when you're looking at the map, if you like. And it's the idea that he's brought him on, taken Shaqiri off, and it's sure they're all up, and everyone's happy. And, you know, we talked before, Hughes saying he's happy with it being 0-0, if you like, in the second half. Don't think you get anything for that mark. But, you know, from our point of view, we've got the 3 points, we've got 3 goals, we're top of the league. Happy days.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of things on it for me. I think it's important to know we don't break that well still in the second half. There's a couple of moments where we look at Liverpool now and we say, you know, the final pass wasn't right. Well, there's times now where it's the 3rd or 4th pass that we're just not getting right, and it's going to come that. It's going to come by virtue of playing 2 games a week. So, you know, we have to countenance for that, where there's a couple of times where you're going, if you break him right from your second pass, you know, you're going to be in and more likely it's a goal. But it's the thing I've touched on a couple of times now, whereby this team's getting used to winning games all the time, like winning a consecutive number of games on the bounce. And I think something that comes with that is managing a game over a 90-minute period. So I think everyone, players, fans alike, we all have to get used to a period where if it's comfortable, around 45 to 70, there's this lull. And then within this lull, nothing happens. But that's fine, because if we have that lull 2 years ago, we concede 2 goals and everyone shit themselves. And it's that notion of we're just managing our way through a football match. Because it's quite funny, because I picked up on it on Saturday, because around 70, a couple of players do a few shuffles, we nearly get in a couple of times, the crowd gets up a little bit again. It's like everyone's remembered there's a game of footy being played. But it's a good sign, it's a good thing. You know, you remember the days of good Liverpool sides where you can have a chat to the lad next to you, you can have a talk about what you're doing tonight at the game, and it's how many years did we go with not having that? With going into a Southampton at home who, you know, if you believe bogey sides, one of ours, got a good record at Anfield, they play well in the first half. If it was 0-0 on 70 with the way they played in the first half, everyone would be tetchy. So it's all good signs for me.
It's like playing with comfort, isn't it, in what you've got, and your ability as well. And the crowd being all right with it as well.
Yeah, I think there's loads going to it, and it goes back to what we were saying before. At 3-0, the other side are basically already accepting they can't get back into this game. So it goes back to stuff we've talked about in past weeks, where they think, well, if we throw stuff at this game now to try and score in between the 45th and the 60th minute, which is what we need to get back into it, we're risking getting beat 5, 6, 7. If we get beat 5, 6, 7, the manager's thinking, I can't give a team talk that says, it was all right that though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
My whole team is then crushed and I've got to pick them up for next week. Plus, goal difference versus all the other sides down here, which we've mentioned before, is an important factor. So you're left in this sort of weird middle ground where we're quite happy conserving our energy because we've got a game every 3 days for the next however many weeks. And they can't risk throwing too many people forward. So even the opening stages of the second half, there's a few periods where they're doing nothing, where they are moving the ball well, and they look up and turn around and go back again because they've only got one lad.
Yeah.
There's only one lad to aim for. And then it gets to the point where they think, well, we'll have a go a little bit. And that's where the late flurry comes from, I think, because by the end, they can probably think, well, we'll have a bit of a go now, just for the sake of it. And we're not really risking getting beaten 7, because even if they go and score now, maybe we'll concede 1 and then shut up shop. And it's an incredible position to be in. It's a bit like, again, referencing City a lot, but for obvious reasons. When people look at these runs, you can think, oh, they're really difficult. But what you don't think about ever is games like that, where if you get to 3-0 by half time, the second half is a procession. And if you're resting on the ball during games, it becomes an exhibition match then. Well, Klopp's sitting there thinking, this is absolutely perfect in the middle of this run, because now I get to rest more lads on Wednesday. Yeah. And actually, we've got fairly fresh legs then.
He mentioned as well about it being quite tough for Milner and being quite tough for Wijnaldum in terms of midfield. There's just the recent schedule and that sort of stuff. So I think there's probably something in what you're saying there as well, in sort of the sterile domination, if you like. Just on Hughes as well, he did say, in case anyone didn't hear what he said we were guilty of not stopping them, creating moments in the first half. The second half was damage limitation. The guys were better in terms of shape, stopped some good attacks and got a clean sheet in the second half. We won't be the first team, won't be the last that this has happened to. I'm pleased we were a little bit more controlled in the second half. We take that positive, but overall not a good day. But there's loads of messages in there, isn't there, about, you haven't done that badly, and Liverpool are a great side, and like what you said, almost the sell for the next team talk, isn't it?
I'm livid with him if I'm a Southampton fan.
Of course you are.
Absolute shithouse. Do you know what I mean? Because you fall on your sword and you get beat 3-0. And if I'm a Southampton fan, I'm coming out going, first half, we've done well there. Do you know what I mean? Literally, they literally had a plan. You could see a plan. I couldn't see a plan for Brighton. Not really. And we only win the game 1-0. Yeah. Southampton basically had a blanket of about 30 yards between Romeo and Long. And what that enabled them to do was split Holberg and Lamina towards Redmond and Target. So they were basically playing how we've played over the years. They created 2 triangles either side, and they got in down Robertson's side a few times, and they were a little bit unlucky. There's one at the back post, I remember, where Trent gets it out for a corner. Yeah. And you can see that's the plan. Now, listen, I'm not a football manager, I'm not an elite football manager, and I know that they have to countenance the fact that they're in a points-based business, but at the end of the day, I would think there's a lot more of an argument to say, well, I can sell the fact that we've set up this way, we've been brave in playing it, we've had a go, and he touches on it there, their moments in games are better than ours. And that's something we can take light from the fact that, we kind of create, well, from 2 set pieces, we create 2 goals before we've even decided where we are at the game. So we give ourselves that cushion from set pieces rather than doing the spellbind and blistering counter-attacking that we've been used to, for example. So you're going to get beat by an elite team, they'll just find a way, you know, and we are becoming an elite team and we will find a way. But if I'm a Southampton fan, I'm thinking, I'd much rather see us play the way we did first half in an ironic way.
Because the idea that it becomes a little bit sort of, you know, cigars out and deck chairs and that is when you look at some of the top pass combinations for Liverpool from Saturday. So the top one is Matip to Van Dijk, 24 times. Van Dijk to Robertson, 17 times. Henderson to Matip, 16 times. Robertson to Henderson, 15 times. And, you know, none of that's attacking. That's just knocking it round in front of Southampton, isn't it, going... Yeah. Or we'll just keep the ball, boys, with 3-0 up.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to what Dan said, I think they actually did well. I think they pressed well. I think they made it uncomfortable at times. And when you'd stop and think about that, that's even a positive for us. Because and this must go on at the top level, you've got managers phoning each other saying, how did you try? When he says, well, we had a plan first half, and this is what we did. And it actually looked like we were having a go. And someone says, and how did you get on? We're 3-0 down. It looked positive, and we were 3-0 down by half time. So
the other one
what you do then? What you try then?
The other one where almost like, you know, data contradicts everything you say in a way is that, and just to finish up on, is Liverpool's attack and third passes from Saturday. Andy Robertson, top 20 out of 25 attempted in the attack and third, so he showed you how much went down that side. But Milner, 17 out of 21 when he comes on at half time. And you know, so the idea that, you know, we don't really have a go second half, and yeah, he's the fella having 2 shots, and he's the fella in the attacking third with 17 out of 21 attacking passes. So actually, for the, you know, the condemnation almost of the Shaqiri substitution, like I don't know if you've seen Match of the Day, but like Ginas and Murphy were a bit like, you know, getting the hook at half time, like that's a big knock to a man like that and all that sort of stuff. And yet, you know, like if they're sat in Melwood today, he can, you know, Klopp can go, well, Milner's come on and made an attacking contribution there.
Yeah, and Andy Robertson has a much better second half as well, because they're back in the normal shape. So, you know, Wijnaldum, Milner, they split. They've got the help they need then. And it might just be that he was looking at something and didn't like the look of it. You know, you don't know, do you? It's a funny thing, but I don't know. I mean, I take heart in the fact that, like I say, we can get to 3-0 by just creating moments, as Hughes put it. And a moment can be a set piece, it can be a corner. When do we ever score off corners? Do you know what I mean? And I was having a look today and I thought, forgot how much we score from set pieces in 13-14. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that aids us massively in going towards nearly something that could have been, you know, a Premier League title. So I'm not sure. It's not a bad thing for me. I don't know.
I think it's important. The moments thing is something I bang on about all the time because, and I think at the elite level, you'll see managers talk about this more. It comes down to moments. I was with my mate who's a City fan on Saturday, and he was talking about Guardiola and the way he talks about football in the documentary and stuff. And they often talk about they can only do so much. We've talked on the review show with Sean in the past about managers will say, I can only create a system that gets you to a certain place. Yeah. After that, it's on you. Like, you've got to be the one who pulls the trigger. Going back to what Dan was saying before about, and this has already happened loads this season, a break which looks like 2 better passes and you're in and you'll score, and we fluff the pass. Now, that makes it look like the second half isn't as good as the first half. But as we say, we scored off a deflected shot cross for the first goal, and then 2 set pieces. We just didn't have them in the second half. And if any one of those breaks, little things break a different way, you pick a better pass, you can easily score more goals. So it's always easy to allow moments to dictate your perception of a game or a half or a period of time. I'd be more focused, having watched it sort of completely cold afterwards, on the overall sort of general performance and the stability of this side. I think if I was a fan of another club right now, especially having watched City in the Champions League, the thing I'd be most worried about with Liverpool is the stability and how strong we are, how we're even able to say, well, we're just going to make this change and make it more solid. Man City is still vulnerable in the same ways they were vulnerable before. They haven't solved that problem, but we have. We've got a Colossus centre-back who can go off in 55 minutes and we still look fine. Yeah. We've got a Colossus in goal. We've got this midfield 3 now with these 2 $15 million midfielders still sitting on the bench. It's hard to see where the negatives are right now.
It is indeed. It's all positive. It's all good. The Reds are top of the league. Next up, it is the League Cup. Chelsea at Anfield on Wednesday night. There will be a post-match pint show after that. Hope you're getting onto those and watching those on the Anfield App's YouTube. There are, as ever, loads and loads of podcasts. Free ones, subscription ones. Check them all out on theanfieldapp.com. That has been the second look for the Southampton game. Up the Reds.